So take some time to settle, lying on your back, maybe knees bent, feet flat to the floor, maybe legs up on a sofa, a chair or a bed. So wherever your legs are, let your legs feel heavy, and then be aware of your lower back. So depending on how you've come to that lying position, you might have a little bit of something that you're feeling in your lower back, particularly if your lower back's quite sensitive. You might just if your feet are on the floor, push your feet into the floor, lift your pelvis slightly, tilt your little tail away from your body, so you're easing the lower back down towards the floor, and then let the pelvis settle. So you make the lower back feel a bit longer. If you've got your legs up on a bit of furniture, you're just going to put some weight into the calf muscles to lift the pelvis slightly and tilt. Oh, and then maybe a couple of big sighing out breaths to let your body soften, to let it ease. Noticing your breath, noticing where you notice your breath. So if it's been busy this morning, perhaps the breath is quite high in the lungs, maybe it's quite a short, rapid breath. Notice that and begin to slow the breath and take it a little bit deeper into your lungs, and be aware of the movement of the ribs. Taking the focus with your breath to that mid part of the lungs, to your ribs, and noticing the movement of your ribs. So as you breathe in, the ribs move outwards to your upper arms. As you breathe in, you notice the front of the chest lifting and lowering a little. As you breathe in, you notice your upper back wanting to move against the mat, the floor underneath you. Not necessarily big movements, because you've got your body weight resting on your back, but you can feel it happening. Encouraging the breath to be soft and easy. As the body settles, the breath begins to slow. And then when you're ready to, with an in-breath, taking the breath all the way to the bottom part of the lungs. It's that sensation like you breathe into your abdomen. And you notice the gentle rise and fall of the abdomen with the in and the out breath. Breathing into the very bottom part of the lungs, noticing the abdomen move, and breathing into the sides of the ribs. Sorry, you're already breathing into your lungs, into the ribs. And as you breathe out, think about emptying the bottom of your lungs and then the mid part. As you breathe in, noticing the abdomen moving and then the ribs. As you breathe out, noticing the abdomen moving and then the ribs. Breathing in, abdomen, ribs, and then a tiny bit of movement up near your collarbones. It won't be a lot. And then as you breathe out again, noticing abdomen, ribs, and then a little bit of a sensation of the collarbones lowering. It's very subtle, it's a very small movement when you start to notice things up near your collarbones. Can be a bit tempting to suck a whole load more air in and move the shoulders and tense up near the shoulders, the neck and the jaw. So know that it's very subtle, it's very small, and you may notice it, you may not, and that's fine. being with your soft, easy breathing. Keeping that rhythm, that flowing, easy, soft breath. And then being aware of your arms, have a little wiggle of your fingers with your next in-breath, in your own time, floating the arms up so your fingers point towards the ceiling. And with an out-breath, floating your arms back down by your side. So the movement of the arms is quite slow. It's matching the length of your in-breath. And noticing which one influences the other. So the lovely, slow, soft breath, does that encourage the arms to be slow as they move? Or do the slow movement of the arms encourage the breath to be lovely and soft and long? And you breathe in, the arms float up. There's that little moment in time just before you want to breathe out. So the arms don't move, the breath doesn't happen, and then your body wants to breathe out. So you float the arms back down by your side. And then when the arms come back down by your side, the end of your out breath, there's that moment in time where nothing's happening, and then your body wants to breathe in. Enjoying those little moments between the breath, being aware of that calm, stillness, sense of ease. Next time, again in your own time, next time your arms float up with an in-breath, have an out-breath with your fingers pointing to the ceiling. Then your next in-breath, arms out to angel arms at shoulder height, and your out-breath, fingers point to the ceiling. In-breath, angel arms, out-breath, fingers point to the ceiling. So different movement with the arms, soft and floaty and slow, and the arms moving with the breath. Being aware of that pause at the end of each part of your breath. Soft and easy in your arms, so your shoulders feel okay. And it's all at your speed, so this is just, your arms are mirroring the length of your breath, because it's your breath. But noticing that you can let it be soft and slow and easy. So again, in your breathing speed and changing it when you're ready to, your out breath brings your fingers to point to the ceiling. Your next in-breath floats your arms above your head towards the floor. Out-breath, fingers to the ceiling, and in-breath, arms to the floor above your head. And again, slowing that movement of the arms to match your in and out breath. So these three different arm movements connecting with the three different parts of the lungs, the bottom, the middle, the top. And then we can connect all three parts. Next time you breathe out, bring your arms all the way down by your side. And then you breathe in and take your arms all the way up and above your head to the floor. And breathe out, arms all the way down by your side. Slow, floaty arms, slow, soft breath. And taking time to notice at the end of the in-breath, that gap, that space where no breath is happening and no arm movement is happening. It feels calm, it feels still, it feels easy to be in that little space. And then the breath happens and the arms move again. Lovely. Next time your arms come down by your side, let them rest. And take a moment to notice how your body feels, how your breathing has been with that practice, how your shoulders are. An opportunity to check in with anything in your body that feels a little bit tight, that you want to soften and ease, anything that's sore or injured. So a reminder to move in the right way for you this morning. And check in that the space you have around you is free of things so you don't bump into them. So with your next in-breath, float your arms up and then reach your fingers to the ceiling with your in-breath. Then use an out-breath to let your arms feel kind of like they settle heavily into your shoulder pockets. Then an in-breath floats your arms above your head to the floor. Then an out-breath drags your arms in a semicircle from above your head, dragging them along the floor to back down by your side. In breath, you float your arms up and reach for the ceiling. Out breath, lower your arms into their shoulder pockets. In breath, float your arms above your head to the floor. Out breath, drag your arms along the floor as heavy as you can and bring them all back down by your side. One more of those. Breathing in, reaching for the ceiling. Breathing out, lowering your arms into their shoulder pockets. Breathing in, float your arms above your head. Breathing out, drag your arms in a half circle either side of you until your arms come back down by your side. Super. So you might need to move position. We're going to do a little bit of twisting. So taking the knees down to one side, particularly if you've got your legs propped up on any furniture. If you haven't and you are happy to stay where you are, then that's great. So knees bent, feet flat to the floor to start with. Let's check in with how the pelvis and the lower back are feeling. Put your imaginary clock onto your tummy and add the marble, and then roll the little marble between the 12 and the 6 on your clock. So the 12 is up beyond your tummy button, the 6 is somewhere down near your pubic bone, and you're rolling the marble up and down in a straight line on the clock. When you roll it to 12, your lower back pushes into the floor. When you roll the marble to 6 and tilt the pelvis the other way, you get this sense of a little hollow in your lower back. So rocking the pelvis to see how it feels. Have a little bit of a push of your feet into the floor as you do this. And noticing there's some space between your knees, the size of a big grapefruit. Same space between your ankles. And the little pushing of your feet into the floor helps with the tilting of the pelvis, keeping your knees fairly still, your thighs parallel. Roll the marble to 12, then send it round to the 3, down to the 6, round to the 9, back up to the 12. Roll it around 2 more times on your clock. Keeping the knees fairly still, pushing the feet a little bit into the floor. Let it be the pelvis that's tilting. Next time you come back to 12, send your marble round the other way to the 9, then the 6, then the 3, then the 12. A few more times around the clock face, checking in with how that feels. Super. And then let the marble come to the middle of your clock. Squeezing your knees and your ankles together, take your arms out to angel arms. With an out breath, lower your legs down to one side. With an in breath, lift the knees back up. With an out breath, lower your knees down to the other side. And with an in breath, lift them back up. So we get to explore how the lower back is feeling at this point before we take it any further. This gives it a chance to ease if it is feeling tight, but also then we think about whether we might need some supports for the legs if we make this deeper. So if you Velcro your knees and your ankles together, what happens when you take the legs over to the left is your right foot comes up from the floor and you roll onto the outside edge of your left foot. And as you lift your knees back up, initiate that movement from the leg that's closest to the floor, and then take the legs over to the other side, Velcroing them together at the knees and the ankles. So that makes it ever so slightly deeper into the spine again. So we check in to see how it feels. Next time you take your knees down to the right, just leave them there for a moment. Be aware of your left shoulder. So your upper back and your shoulder might be heavily resting on the floor. If it isn't, bend your left elbow, bring your fingers to your shoulder. You might do this anyway, even if your shoulder feels like it's resting heavily. So with your fingers on your shoulder, just have a wiggle of that shoulder around and move the elbow around in space to wiggle the shoulder up and down from the floor in any way that feels right. Imagine there's a little salsa dance going on in your shoulder joint, so wiggle it in any way that you want to. Then let the shoulder soften and open out the hinge joint of your elbow to let your arm rest. Maybe the shoulders come down a little bit more. So we're working towards the upper back being horizontal, the pelvis being vertical, and that lovely turning down the spine. So bring your knees back up to centre, so your knees face the ceiling, and then lower your legs down to the other side, over to the left. Let them rest down onto the floor. You might have a sighing out breath. Notice what's happening then in your right shoulder. Maybe you bring the fingertips to the shoulder and you ease and wiggle the shoulder around in space. You wiggle the elbow as well. You might lift it up to the ceiling and move that shoulder around in any way that feels right, to let the upper back settle and to open up the hinge joint elbow and your arms back to angel arms, resting and noticing. Super. And bring your knees back to centre, hug your knees to your chest, have a little rock. So if you want to deepen the turning in your spine, we're going to keep the knees up towards the chest. We're going to take the arms out to angel and then lower the legs down. If you're thinking, not sure my back wants to do this, you keep your feet on the floor. So keeping your legs drawn up towards you, and the more you draw your legs up towards you as you lower them down to the side, the more turning you get into your spine. So take your legs to one side, doesn't matter which way you go. Use your sighing out breath to let your legs settle. Let your feet touch the floor. Wiggle your toes to make sure you've not got any tightness in your toes and in your feet. Imagine a little tranquilizer dart's gone into the side of your pelvis and your feet just fall, and your legs fall asleep. So whichever way your legs have gone, check in with the opposite side of you, that shoulder. Maybe you bring a hand to the shoulder and you ease and wiggle that shoulder around in space and let the shoulder settle back down. It's absolutely fine that the shoulder floats from the floor as long as it doesn't cause pain in the shoulder joint. If you end up with pain in your shoulder joint, I would suggest we need to prop the legs and the feet so that your shoulder settles onto the floor and it's not being aggravated, and it will lift the legs a little bit. Okay, so pop something, a couple of books under the knees or under the ankles, and then it will take out any discomfort in the shoulder because the shoulder can soften and rest. The twist can still happen. You can sigh your out breath to let everything soften. It takes a little while. So when your muscles first lengthen into what we call a stretch, they tighten up. So that's your body's safety mechanism. Then you need to let the body soften and ease. It takes some time. So you might have something underneath your knees and your ankles. You might have something between your knees and your ankles. That's the stuff you can move as your body softens to let the legs come closer to the floor and deepen the turning. You might not do that, but you might. So ease yourself there. So something else that you can do, whichever way your knees have gone, just be aware of the arm on the opposite side of you and move it a quarter of a circle from angel arms to that position where it's above your head. So you drag the arm on the floor just a quarter of a circle from being in angel arms to being up above your head, so the upper arm comes close to your ear, and then back out to angel arms. There might be a point somewhere there as you're dragging that arm. Try not to lift it, try to drag it, because it's a completely different movement in the shoulder muscles when we're dragging. And we get some ease quite often into those muscles around the shoulder blades where it gets really tight and knotted. This can be quite a nice way to ease those muscles. There might be a point somewhere in that movement where you feel quite a connection from the shoulder joint muscles across the front of the chest. And you could come to that point where you think, ooh, there, I can feel that lengthening. And hover there and breathe out and let everything feel soft. Just be careful with anything that is potential, like an old injury in your shoulder, any surgery across the front of the chest. Just be aware you don't want to upset anything, but it might feel quite nice to be soft and to ease it. Lovely. Next time your arm goes out to angel arm, then let it rest there. Pop a tranquilizer dart into your upper body so your arms, your neck, your jaw, your head is asleep. And miraculously, the tranquilizer dart that you put in your hip earlier has now run out. So squeeze your knees and your ankles together. Let me talk you through it just before you do it, and then you can decide. What I'd like you to do is to squeeze your knees and your ankles together, draw your knees slightly up towards your abdomen and lift an inch from the floor, the whole of your legs. And then breathe in and lift an inch, breathe out, hover in that space, breathe in, lift an inch. And work an inch at a time to bring yourself onto your back. Check in with how much work your fast asleep arms are having to do, and really working into your abdominal muscles, your pelvic floor muscles, to lift your legs back. Keep drawing your knees towards you as you do that. The more you draw your knees in towards you and squeezing your abdominals and squeezing your legs together, the safer it will be in your lower back. It should be absolutely safe for your lower back to do this. If you don't want to, you keep your feet on the floor and lift your knees back up. Once you're on your back and your knees are up above you, have a hug of your knees to your chest. So it should take us, you know, kind of 5 or 6 in and out breaths to get back up. It depends how big your inches are, really, doesn't it? Brilliant. I know that some inches are really quite big, and that's fine, particularly the last few get bigger. So take your arms out to angel, and then lowering your legs to the other side. Remembering that as you lower them down, you can draw them closer towards you. That creates a deeper tone in your spine, a deeper twisting sensation in the muscles across your abdomen. Possibly means the shoulder on the opposite side lifts for a while, but you can bring the fingertips to that shoulder and wiggle and ease and move the shoulder joint around, and things start to feel a little bit softer and easier there. You could prop your legs. Have something under the knees, have something under the ankles, or between the knees and the ankles. It seems mostly that if you're wanting to settle the legs a little bit closer to the floor and the shoulder, you have your ankles slightly more propped than your knees, and you still get this lovely twist, and then you can decide whether you take things out from underneath your ankles. But have the props that you need where you need them. And breathe, sigh your out breath. So arm on the opposite side of you to the way your legs have gone. Your arm is out to angel, shoulder height. You're going to drag that arm in a quarter circle so the upper arm comes near to your ear, and then drag it back round to angel arm height. Again, noticing what's going on that side, where it feels into the shoulder, and breathing out. It's absolutely fine that what we feel is something that's unusual, something that's tight, and you think, oh, this is quite nice to ease it, but we want to move away from and not go into and through anything that causes pain inside the joint. So backing away from anything that's pain, but moving slowly and gently through anything that feels tight. Being aware of how much movement you create from that joint down across your chest and down the side of the body a little bit, being aware of anything you need to protect and move slowly through. Post-surgery, post-injury, just be careful. Lovely. Wherever it's tight, breathe out, move slowly. So next time your arm comes back to angel arms, let it rest there. Whole of the upper body becomes soft and heavy. Squeeze your knees, squeeze your ankles together. The squeezing of the legs together will activate your pelvic floor and your tummy muscles. Be aware of them, hold on to them, squeeze your legs together, draw your knees up towards your abdomen a little bit, and then start to lift your legs with each in-breath, an inch at a time, working hard to keep the work away from your arms and keeping it in your abdomen and your legs, squeezing them together, slowly coming back to center. When you arrive onto your back, hugging your knees to your chest, have a little rock, and then pop your feet to the floor. Push your feet into the floor. If you feel your heels more than the balls of your feet, then wiggle your feet closer to your bottom. Have a grapefruit size between your ankles and your knees. Tilt your pelvis, push your lower back into the floor, and then push your feet into the floor and lift your pelvis up from the floor, and then lower it back down. Breathe out, push your lower back into the floor, keep that tilt of the pelvis and lift lift your pelvis up from the floor, and then breathe in, lower yourself back down. So dynamic bridge. Push your feet into the mat, tilt your pelvis like you're trying to stick your imaginary tail between your knees and lifting, and then lowering. Depending on how long your in and out breath is, you might lift on your out breath and lower on your in breath. You might lift on an out and an in breath and then lower back down again. It depends how long your breath is. It's absolutely fine to breathe in the most comfy way for you. Next time you get your pelvis lifted up in the air, hold it there. Push your feet into the floor, drive your kneecaps forwards with your thighs parallel. Have a little explore of how it feels to lift one heel of your foot from the floor up onto the ball of that foot, then lower the foot back down and the other side. So we have a little walk and a little bit of a lift to check that you're not cramping your feet. You might come up onto both of the balls of the feet. Drive the kneecaps forwards and then put the heels of the feet down and draw the knees to the chest. Have a little hug. If you're feeling it in your lower back, tilt your pelvis, John, as you're holding that up. Like you're sticking your tail between your knees. You want to keep your lower back long. Brilliant. So it's thigh strengthening. It's really thigh strengthening when you come up onto the balls of your feet. But it has a bit of a tendency then for you to alter how your pelvis is and nip into your lower back. So we're going to come, once you're back down, you've hugged your knees to your chest, we're going to come round to cat. Have a little ease about in cat. And as you ease into cat, we're going to do a few ordinary cat movements. And then take it a little bit stronger where your hands don't move, but you feel like you're reaching them forwards as you reach your tail back away behind you and lower your bottom to your heels. So you get this lovely lengthening sensation into your spine. Bring your elbows to the mat. Scoop yourself forward super, super low, like your nose is an inch from the floor. Keep driving yourself forwards as you straighten your arms. So once you've got your arms straight, you find that you've got your shoulders hovering above your hands, and breathe out. Look at your knees, take your bottom all the way back to your heels, elbows come down, nose is about an inch from the floor, move forwards until you have to lift and keep travelling forwards and lift. And then breathe out, take yourself back, elbows come down, forearms are parallel, try to keep them parallel the whole time, even when the elbows come up from the floor, keep your forearms parallel. And push your hands into the mat. Your head keeps travelling forwards as you straighten your arms. Absolutely fine to have a watch if you're not sure what I'm on about. So you travel forwards, you keep your forearms as parallel as you can, you keep travelling forwards as you straighten your arms. So what we end up doing is taking the work into the back of the upper arms and building some strength. It's the strength that we need for things like plank, for things like chaturanga, where you lower yourself from plank all the way down, controlling from the arms. Great for things like handstands, forearm balance. Not doing that on Zoom, but who knows, one day we'll get back into this studio and we'll be upside down against the wall again. Brilliant. So next time you breathe out, take your bottom all the way back to your heels, If your forehead is happy to rest on the floor, let it rest on the floor. If your forehead would rather rest on your hands, stack your fists and put your forehead onto your stacked fists. If you've got your forehead on the floor and your arms stretched out ahead of you, you can roll up onto the fingertips of one hand and get this fantastic length from the wrist all the way down the back to the top of the pelvis, and then lower the hand back down and then do the same on the other side. So a great way to really notice that you're absolutely connected from your wrist right the way down to the back of your pelvis. Brilliant. So let yourself rest there just for a moment, a couple of in and out breaths, and then come back to cat so you can lower yourself down onto your tummy. Arms stretched out ahead of you, arms are parallel, and then notice where your hands are. So bring your right hand towards your body so that your fingertips are level with your left wrist, and then bring your left hand to be level with your right hand. Your elbows will stick out to the side, so then tuck your elbows into your forearms are parallel and it lifts your chest and your shoulders and you end up in Sphinx. So forearms are parallel, hands are flat on the floor, on the mat, and you've got your tummy button and quite a lot of your ribs resting on the floor, on the mat. Super. So think about lifting your spine between your shoulder blades. I used to refer to this as a long horse's neck. I kind of think that does help in terms of an image. When you see horses and that lovely long neck that they have, and they reach down to the ground to eat, and then up comes that neck. So you imagine your long horse's neck from the base of your skull, so that space between your shoulder blades. So rather than lifting the head by tilting your skull on your spine, lift the head by lifting your long horse's neck. So your spine from the base of your skull to that space between your shoulder blades. Brilliant. If you're feeling anything in your lower back, then tilt your pelvis, push your pubic bone into the mat a little, lift your tummy button from the mat a little. Brilliant. And breathe. Turn your hands into suction pads and start to pull on your hands like you're trying to slide your chest bone forwards towards your hands. Breathe. Tilt the pelvis to protect the lower back. Lift your long horse's neck between your shoulders. And that has you effortlessly looking forwards without nipping in the back of the neck. So check that you can easily move your head around. You've got your long horse's neck lifted, but you're not lifting the gaze by simply tilting the skull on the top of the spine. Keep that suction pad working. So this is where we get the work from. Suction pad, and then push your hands into the floor a little bit while still suction padding, and float your elbow skeleton from the mat slightly. Your skin is still touching, but your skeleton is ever so slightly light at the elbows. Check in with your lower back, tilt the pelvis, lift your long horse's neck, breathe. Fantastic. Lower your skeleton back down at the elbows, lower the body down. Hands one on top of the other and put your forehead on the back of your hands, lengthen out the back of your neck. Let your glute muscles flop because they will have been clenching, I think. Magic. And then bring your hands under your shoulders, come back to cat. Have an ease about in cat. Notice how differently you can move in cat now when you breathe in. You've got your hands pushing into the mat. You've got that sense of lifting the long horse's neck as you breathe in and look forward. So it's not just that sense of your skull tilting. Check in with your forward bending as you breathe out, that lovely length that you can feel across your upper back, because your upper back is working really strongly in the Sphinx, so then the forward bending cat eases. Brilliant. So from cat, just wander your hands towards your knees so you can come up to high kneeling. So from high kneeling, we're going to have a sort of grapefruit size. It's a little bit bigger than my fist because my hands aren't particularly big, but it's that sort of size. That gets your knees underneath your ball and socket joint. Okay. So your ball and socket joint, just as a reminder, if you find that crest bone at the front of your pelvis and put your thumb there, then put your index finger to your pubic bone, and then where your middle finger bends, if you just bend it and have a poke about, that there is pretty much where your ball and socket joint is. Okay, so then you know where it is, and you get your knee underneath, and then we're stacked to make best use of gravity and muscles don't have to work so much. Brilliant. Okay, so right foot comes through. We want a right angle at the knee, we want a right angle at the ankle, and we want to have the left ball and socket joint over the knee. Brilliant. Push the right foot into the floor. Notice that helps a little bit with some stability. And then we're going to bring the right hand onto the right knee. I'm turning to the side now so that you can see. Okay, you're staying where you are. Brilliant. So from here, this is the position that we're in. We're going to take I've turned the wrong way. We're going to take the left arm up into the air. You'll see why I've turned the wrong way in a second. Left arm goes up into the air, have an in-breath. With an out-breath, reach forwards and you bring the hand down next to the right foot, as if it were your left foot, so with a space, not right next to. You've got your right hand on your knee, which allows you to just push a little bit into that knee to turn the body and to see what it feels like. Your gaze looks to the right. You've got your right shoulder stacked over your left shoulder. You might stay here. You might lift the right arm from the knee and reach for the ceiling if it feels okay in that shoulder. If the shoulder's not stacked particularly over your left shoulder, it's going to hurt into your right shoulder as you take the arm up. So maybe put the arm onto the lower back or leave it on the knee. Reach for the ceiling with your right fingers if your arm's up in the air. Fantastic. Keep pushing your right foot into the floor because the right knee might want to wander. Bring the right hand back down onto that knee. Turn your body to look to the floor, to your big toes in your hands. Release the right hand down to the floor. Push your right foot into the floor. And then bring your hands to your waist. Keep your legs exactly where they are, and then bring the upper body up. Take your arms up. So from here, think about long horse's neck and that sense that from the base of your skull to the space between your shoulder blades, your long horse's neck is lifting to the ceiling and back a little. So just your upper back moves backwards in space. Your gaze looks to the ceiling. You've got no nipping in the neck. Bring your head to look forwards. So your ears are between your upper arms, and then bring the arms back down and step your knee back. Let's have a go to the other side. So bringing the left foot through. Sometimes it comes a bit too close here, you're on a tightrope. So your stance, how wide apart this is for balance. It can be as wide as you want. We work towards everything being ball and socket joint hip width apart, but you know, it's more important not to fall over, isn't it, to be honest? So from this position, I will now turn the right way for this side, having remembered how my body does turn. You've got your left hand onto your left knee. You're going to take your right arm up into the air. You're going to breathe out and reach forwards, and then bring the right hand down next to the left foot, but in a position as if your right foot was there and you were standing with your feet slightly apart. So you've got your right shoulder hovering above your right wrist. You've got your left hand on the knee, which helps just turn the body slightly. So our body's been turning already, so your pelvis now is horizontal. Your shoulders have turned to be vertical. You get your left shoulder above your right shoulder. But you might ease back and forwards to get there. A little bit of pressure with the hand on the knee. Try not to force it, use your out breath. When you're ready to, that left arm could be released from the knee and taken up into the air. Gaze to the left. It's quite strong if you take your gaze up to your hand, so gaze to the side of the room. Also gives you a chance to just glance at your foot and your knee that you haven't with the turn. Let your left knee flop over to the left. So make sure your knee is above your ankle, your foot pushing into the floor. Breathe, reach the ceiling. Fantastic. Bring the hand back down onto the knee. Turn your body to look towards the floor. Bring your left hand to the floor. Push your left foot into the floor so your legs are firm. Bring both hands to the waist and then bring the upper body to the vertical. Then keep pushing your left foot. This anchors all the muscles in your legs, makes us feel firm. Lifting the arms up. Long horse's neck from the base of the skull to that space between your shoulder blades. Lift and take it backwards a little bit. So we're not bending in the lower back. Draw your tummy button towards your spine. Squeezing your pelvic floor muscles. Push your left foot into the floor. It's an upper back bend, just like you were with Sphinx. So now tilt your head and look forwards if you realise how much you've gone backwards. And then bring the arms down and knees back together. Super. If you bring yourself, if this is okay for your knees, come here and fold yourself forwards into child. If your knees don't want to be squished, because you're looking after knees, then sit on your bottom, knees bent, feet flat to the floor, and dangle forwards. You get the same easing sensation in the back with that as you do in child, but obviously it doesn't scrunch into your knees. Super. And we're going to come back up to high kneeling. You don't need a belt. Sorry, I'm hunting for a belt. You don't need one. I just want it to put a coloured line across the front of that mat to match this one. So we're going to kneel anywhere at all, really doesn't matter. What we're going to do then is take the right foot out to the right. And whatever the space is from this knee to your imaginary line or the edge of your mat, have it similar here, okay? That's all that line is for, simply to show you in space on the screen the positioning that I'm doing. So, doesn't matter where your right leg goes to in space. what we're keen to do is keep the ball and socket joint over the knee of this leg. So what can happen is this one wanders out and then this one follows, okay? But we want to keep it vertical, and then this leg, it wanders out to wherever feels comfy. If I wander my foot out so my leg goes straight, my toes come up from the floor. I don't have that amount of flexibility in my ankle joint. So I've got my knee slightly bent, because what's better for your balance is that your foot is anchored to the floor. Okay? So this is the position that we're in. So right leg out to the right, left arm behind your back of the right hand on the inside of your right leg. You're leaning against an imaginary wall. Breathe in, breathe out, and just slide the hand a little bit so you come into a side bend, and breathe in and slide back up. We're not aiming to get to the floor. What we're aiming to do is notice our spine in a side bend, like we're leaning against an imaginary wall. So no need to take this hand any further than it can go with a side bend, because as soon as we take it too far, we come into a forward bend as well. So a gentle little exploration of our side bend. Next time you breathe out and slide your hand to where your side bend feels comfy, you've got the back of the hand on that leg, you can just nudge it against the leg, and that rolls your left shoulder slightly back in space, so you are really leaning against an imaginary wall. Like I say, it's not a big side bend. Release your left hand from behind your back, slide it up and into space. Now we get that lovely length down the side of the body, down the left side. So you can ease your left fingers over to the right. You can push your right foot into the floor. You can lift your left shoulder backwards just a touch and experience a fantastic side bend. And you haven't had to reach for the floor, but we're in control. Tummy button drawing to the spine, pelvic floor lifting, breathing. Sliding the left hand back to the ear, all the way down to the lower back. Breathe in, lift up. Now breathe out and slide, and see that your body goes just a touch further, but you're still in your side bend. And then breathe in and come back up. Okay? So we don't have to go all the way in that direction, because if we go a little way and lengthen here, then it lets us go further later on. Let's have a go to the other side. Knees come back together. So left leg out to the side, similar distance, knee from that imaginary line as your foot. I always get to this side and then I'm reminded to say that your ball and socket joints are completely different on one side to the other, because this is my tight side here, so it doesn't want to go out as easily. That makes side bending more tricky, okay, so be aware of it. Pushing your foot into the floor, right arm behind your back of the left hand to the inside of that leg. If you move your right shoulder backwards a bit, then you've got that sense that you're leaning against an imaginary wall. Breathe out, and that little bit of side bending. It's not going to be that much, because we haven't done anything with this side yet. Let it ease, let it soften down. Breathing out, so we're not aiming for the floor. We're aiming to keep our back leaning against an imaginary wall as we side bend. So it's this sense of your shoulder keeping backwards the whole time. So next time you slide the hand to wherever feels comfy for your side bend, you're going to bring your right hand from behind your back, slide it up in space. And you get a wonderful lengthening. So right fingers are reaching to the left foot pushing into the floor, lifting the right shoulder backwards slightly in space. Fantastic side bending, lengthening down the right side of the body. Breathe, tummy button to the spine, lift the pelvic floor. Lovely. And then slide the hand back to the ear, all the way down. Breathing, come up. And then breathe out and slide. And notice that you just go a tiny bit further because you've got that little bit more freedom to go. And breathe in and come back up. Bring your leg back. Cat. Easing in a forward bend and a back bend. Maybe you quite like to go to child for a moment or two. Maybe sit on your bottom with your knees bent, dangling over your bent knees. And then when you're ready to, lying down in any position that you want to be in for your Shavasana. Noticing what you need. Do you want your legs up on a chair, sofa, the bed? Do you want a bolster under the back of your knees? Do you want your knees strapped together, knees bent, feet flat to the floor, cushion under your head, eye pillow, blanket? Anything at all? So know that at the end of relaxation, if you don't move from that position, I'm going to assume that you are happy to stay there. You could lift a hand and just wave and stay lying down. It's absolutely fine, because you might want to stay there for a little bit longer. Entirely up to you. I'm just going to go and shut my window because somebody's making a bit of a racket outside. Easing and softening yourself down into your relaxation position, your Shavasana. Maybe you have a cushion under your head. Gentle little tilt of the head, so the forehead is ever so slightly higher than your chin. You might have a cushion under each wrist to ever so slightly tilt the hands into flexion. You might have something under the back of your knees and under the back of your ankles. Rolled up blanket in a long sausage to have underneath your ankles. Only if you've got your knees supported though. Don't support the back of your ankles if your legs are long down the mat, because that won't be good for your knees. Brilliant. Anywhere at all that you want to be in your comfy relaxation. Oh, come with a big sighing out breaths. And breathing into the very bottom part of your lungs, noticing your abdomen move with each in and out breath. Breathing into the very bottom part of your lungs and then the mid part of the lungs. Breathing out from the bottom and then the mid part. So building back to that place where you are using your 3-part breath. Breathing in bottom, middle, top. Breathing out bottom, middle, top. And it might be that you want to do a concentration practice now in your Shavasana. Absolutely optional. We're going to count backwards from 20. So with each out breath, you're counting backwards from 20. And when you notice that your mind has wandered off, you come back to 20 and start again. And when you get to 0, you come back to 20 and start again. And we try to not get too attached with the outcome, that sense of wanting to get to 0. If we get to 0, we get to 0. If we don't, we don't. We're noticing that we hold our focus with our counting backwards from 20 each time we breathe out. Sticking with that concentration with your breath until you hear my voice again. After your next out breath, releasing your count. Allow your focus to be with your physical body, noticing the position that you're in, where you are in your room, where the doors are, where the windows are. Making some little movements with fingers and toes, easing yourself back. Know that it's absolutely fine to stay where you are. You might have a yawn, you might have a stretch. Maybe you quite like to roll around on your back and ease, or hug your knees to your chest, whatever you feel like doing. To gently bring yourself back to a comfy sitting position. Maybe if you're close to the computer, you want to unmute yourself. That's entirely up to you. Sometimes you're so far away, it's a bit of a faff, isn't it? So that's fine. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming. Namaste.